You're listening to the Parents of Hardworking Teens podcast, episode 135, determining the level of your teen's clarity on what a task or question requires from them and what their response will focus on, and how to increase this clarity if things are a little bit cloudy or murky rather than crystal clear. And by the way, do not worry, things are almost always a little bit cloudy or murky to start with. The key is deciphering and determining where that uncertainty lies and then working on clearing that up. I'm Katie Jones, and with over 15 years in education as an award-winning high school teacher, international external examiner, and as a study coach, I've helped thousands of students skyrocket their results and confidence. And this podcast is where I share all my insights, tactics, and tips with you, the parent, so you can help your hardworking teen get happy, smart, and successful in their study, and have you both enjoy the journey along the way. This is the Parents of Hardworking Teens podcast. Hey VIPs, I hope you and your teens are doing great. I am really excited to record this episode today and share with you something that is pretty specific and in some ways kind of high level, but in saying high level, I also consider it to be absolutely essential. And that's because it makes a huge difference to your teen's confidence and results. But I guess it feels kind of high level because I just don't think a lot of students or teachers spend a lot of time or put a lot of focus on it. So that almost makes it feel more advanced. And this flows on nicely from a couple of episodes ago where I talked about confidence and how your teen can get more of it in their study and exams and assessment. I will link to that episode in the show notes. But today I want to share another sort of angle or aspect of this, because today we're going to talk about clarity. Kind of similar to confidence. It definitely brings confidence when your teen has clarity, but it is a little bit different. So I'm going to talk about clarity on what a question is asking or what a task requires, and clarity around the response and how to keep that response focused and high quality. Now, this topic of clarity comes from what I often do or work on with students in coaching sessions. And I'm going to share a specific example of where this issue of clarity popped up recently and what I have been doing specifically with students to help highlight areas where there is a lack of clarity, where there's some fuzziness or some uncertainty. Uncertainty is actually a word I think works really well here. It kind of sums things up nicely. And then how to use those specific areas where there is a lack of clarity in order to take action to increase their certainty in very tangible and specific ways. So like I said, I want to share all this with you by sharing an example of some work I was doing with a Year 12 student. It was on an English Literature Creative Writing assessment. It was specifically called Imaginative Writing. And it was an assessment that they had already completed. They'd had their mark back on it. And although it was pretty good, they wanted to know what they could have done to make it even better. So the interesting thing here that kind of inspired me to make this episode was that I mostly picked out where they lost marks without actually reading their response. Now, I did go and read it, or I read parts of it eventually, but what I did first was dive into the marking criteria, which is what I encourage your teen to do before they start any sort of larger task or assignment. I want them to figure out what they're actually going to be judged on. What is the marker going to be looking for? How are they going to get credit? What is the actual point of the task? What is it there to have them prove or demonstrate? I did do a podcast episode on exactly this, all about knowing what the actual point of any assessment really is. It is literally called, What's the Point? No, really, what is it? That's the full title. I will put a link to it in the show notes for you, because in this case, the point was to have them demonstrate their ability to use a wide range of literary techniques and skills, have them pick ones that are most relevant to the specific genre that they're writing in, and be able to relate the idea for their writing to the themes that had been studied. So Before I even looked at their writing, looked at their response, I forced them to look at the criteria. And I asked a couple of strategic questions around the choices that they had made, because they had free choice over what genre they were going to write in. And they had chosen to do a monologue. I had no problem with that. It was one of the options, and they were very clear on that. But what it turned out they weren't totally clear on was exactly what the features were, or are, they still are, of a monologue. And here's why I lasered in on this a little bit. Because writing according to a chosen genre was one of the aspects that was written on the criteria. It was one of the things that was being assessed. So given that, I was like, okay, what made you choose that genre? What are the key features or characteristics of that genre that we need to be displaying? Because in my head, I wanted to know, do they know what the marker was looking for in their writing? What did they need to demonstrate, and were they fully aware of that? Now, their reason for the genre was solid. They said it was because they felt like it was a good match for being able to convey the emotion and the message, the personal aspects of that. And that was all good. I totally agreed. Okay, yep, if we know that those things are the key aspects or the real focal points, then I'm totally on board with that, all happy. But when it came to that other aspect, what were the features, what are the characteristics of the genre? This is where they weren't so clear, or one of the things they weren't so clear on. I'll share with you the second thing in a moment. Now, I wanted them to, when I asked that question, what are the key features or characteristics of this genre? I wanted them to ideally give me a list of, let's say, 5 or 6 elements that are specific to monologues. Elements that are going to allow the student to show the marker that they are really strong at writing in that form and style. But this is where they were a little bit hazy. They couldn't give me that list. They sort of said, oh, well, it's kind of this, or yeah, it needs to have this. But straight away, my suspicion was that this is probably one of the places they'd lost marks. Specifically on the criteria that said, discerning use of the patterns and conventions of an imaginative text. Because in marker speak, that basically means, are they employing and using effectively specific features of the genre? The structural features, the aesthetic features, the stylistic devices of the imaginative genre, of the monologue genre that they had selected. Because hey, if we are not clear on exactly what we need to do and include in a piece of writing, then it is very unlikely that we are just going to do that. We are going to include that just by chance or by luck. So that was a red flag for me. But the nice thing was that it made the student realize, yeah, I probably actually didn't do a great job of that. The fact that they realized I can't quite tell you exactly what those features or elements are. I just kind of did my best at writing what I felt like was a monologue. It made them realize that this was something that was letting them down. And I always say this is good news. Not good that they lost marks, but good that they now know why. And that they were guided in figuring this out for themselves, because that will make it stick. They can now do things differently in a very intentional and controlled way next time. Not just by guessing or hoping that they're giving what they need to. So the second major thing that I picked up on before even looking at their response, by instead, let's just say testing their clarity, let's call it that, testing their clarity, and doing that simply based on the task sheet and the marking criteria, was around the message that they were aiming to convey. In other words, what point was their piece of writing trying to make? What was the takeaway supposed to be for the reader, for the audience, aka the marker? Because once you get past your 7 or 8, it is not enough just to have a nice story or an interesting piece of writing. There needs to be a message, and that message needs to be based on a theme, usually the theme that has been studied in class or through the text that they have been working on. A theme that the assessment is testing to see if your teen can apply to their own work in an original way. Now, sometimes this message is called the central idea or key idea. Notice theme and message are slightly different. I'm purposefully using different words for those. There is loads I could talk about here in relation to themes and messages and central ideas of a text, but for now, let's just say that it is important to have one. Not just to have one, but to be ridiculously clear on what it is and how it's going to be conveyed. Now, in fairness to the student, it was a piece that they'd completed last term. So the task overall was a little bit hazy in their memory, but nevertheless, when I asked, okay, so what was the message you were conveying? What was the point of your text? What was your central idea? Even allowing for the time that had passed, their response was just not clear enough for my liking. Here's what I want when I ask that question to a student. I want them to be able to answer me in one simple sentence in words that a 10-year-old could understand. If they have clarity, then they should be able to do that. If it becomes a bit convoluted or a bit complex and they're sort of going a little bit all over the place, they need a few sentences to be able to do it, then it is not clear enough. It's a little bit like the idea that you know you truly understand a topic when you can teach it to someone else in a way that they'll understand. Not that there can't be nuances or different aspects to their message or their central idea, but they should be able to distill this down into one key message. And this goes for clarity on the message of a text that they've been studying or the message of a text that they are writing. Your teen should be able to tell you in words that you easily understand, even if you are not a literature person at all, which I should add, I'm not either. I'm not an English subject specialist. They should be able to tell you in a simple sentence what is the central idea, the message, the point of the text, maybe even the purpose of the text. In fact, I will just share a quick example because I worked recently with a different student on the novel The Great Gatsby on an assignment task they were doing on that. And so as a result of our discussion on that, I know that the overarching message is that materialism and going after things like social status, striving for that American dream can lead to corruption and moral decay. Though, as I say that, maybe even that isn't words that a 10-year-old could understand. Maybe it's something more like going after the dream of money and status is actually not going to create happiness or not going to create a great society. Now, I haven't read the book, but based on what the student was able to tell me about the key message, I understand what the purpose, what the key point, the central idea of The Great Gatsby is. Now, of course, your teen does not have to write it in those basic words in their actual assessment, but they need to be clear on it in their own mind, either to help them analyze that text effectively if they're writing an essay on it, or on their own key message if they are going to clearly and effectively convey it in their own creative writing. Because again, just like the conventions of the genre, if your teen can't succinctly and clearly state their message, it is unlikely that they're going to be doing a great job of clearly conveying it to the reader in a sophisticated and high quality way in their writing. The probability of that happening just by accident or by luck is extremely low. And this isn't something that needs to just be happening as they write. This clarity, or potentially lack of it, needs to be established before they start writing anything. If they are not clear from the outset, before they start, at the initial planning and decision-making stages, and then ongoing as they develop their ideas, as they plan what their content or their features are going to be, as they then write and then edit their finished product, if they are not clear on this and considering this throughout all of those stages, then it is not going to result in a top scoring piece. For example, it's not going to have, and I will quote this from the task that I've just shared the coaching from, it's not going to show discerning manipulation of values and attitudes to invite audiences to take up positions. In other words, it's not going to make the audience think a certain way or consider a certain viewpoint or issue from a certain perspective. Because unless your teen is clear on what that precise position is, how are they going to guide their reader, their audience, the marker, to see it or land at it? Any element of uncertainty or lack of clarity is going to lead to answers or a piece of writing that is superficial rather than deep and specific, that ends up being a little bit waffly or disjointed rather than succinct and structured. Or sometimes even ending up with points that are contradictory, that aren't, in marker words, consistent or sustained. So honestly, I would say that I spent about 80% of our discussion time and working time with the student on this, questioning them around the mark scheme and the criteria and dissecting the wording of the task. And probably only about then 20% actually reading through and then picking out in their work what they'd done well and why, and where they could have improved and why. Because we could just discern a huge chunk of things from the criteria and from the questioning around their understanding of that and what they felt they'd done with that. And honestly, that I think is a lot more effective at having them think personally and independently about this going forwards. And I hope it serves here to emphasize to you just how important this is and why it's so important to clarify all of this at the very beginning. And I hope you can also see that this can be done with any type of extended task, whether it's maybe a science report or inquiry, a humanities research task, an analytical essay, any genre or format that has any key idea. This idea that this testing of clarity on what's being assessed and how it's being marked or judged, clarity on what your teen actually needs to do, how they need to do it, and clarity on what the actual output needs to demonstrate or show or prove, and then how they're going to make that happen, that this is super important, and that the earlier it starts happening and being considered, the better. Because so much of the final mark and degree of success of an assessment is going to be determined at those initial planning stages. And these initial stages should be constantly referring to and using the mark scheme, the rubric, the success criteria. Because it does not matter how good the writing is if the message or the direction or the focus isn't clear. A student isn't going to get a great mark for, let's say, their vocabulary if their vocab is high quality, but the actual word choices aren't effective. In other words, their vocabulary doesn't create the emotion or message or point that it needs to. And so asking some strategic questions to help highlight where there might be any lack of clarity, where there is any uncertainty, whether those questions are coming from you or from me, or even for your teen to ask them of themselves. Though honestly, that last option is usually not as effective because it's just too easy for us to think we know when we try and question ourselves, or genuinely we feel like we know. It's just one of the tricks that our brains like to play on us. So having an outside person, and ideally, I'll say it, an expert who knows what to ask in what way to really get to the nitty-gritty of things, to uncover some of those blind spots, that is the ideal. And if you would like that for your teen and you don't want it to have to be you who has to become the expert, or you don't have a teacher or tutor who has those years and years of training and experience and expertise in all of this, in assessment, in external examinations, in coursework moderation, in exam board panel work, then drop an email to support@rocksolidstudy.com. Let me know that you've listened to this episode. Let me know that you're interested, and I will send you details of this coaching and training combo that I've developed where I can work with your teen personally on this and much more. It is a new setup that I have been running, so it is not on the website, but it's going super well, and I'm going to keep it going. Maybe it will make it onto the website soon. We'll see. I haven't actually needed to put anything official up. It's kind of just spreading and filling up from me mentioning it here on the podcast and in my emails. But I'm loving working with students in this way, and I'm loving the impact that it's having. So, clarity and questioning around that clarity. That is my share for today. Have a brilliant rest of your day, and I will meet you back here next time. Take care. Bye. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you head on over to www.rocksolidstudy.com and sign up for my free parent guide. The 3 huge mistakes even smart students make in exams and assignments, and how to fix them immediately. And I'll see you back here next week.